Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Michelson, the Program and Membership Coordinator for the Iowa Newspaper Foundation. I want to thank you all for attending today's Online Media Campus webinar, Reviving Newspapers in Digital News Deserts. Online Media Campus is a partnership between the Iowa Newspaper Foundation, state partnering press associations you see here listed, and America's Newspapers. We thank all partners for their support in making it possible to bring top quality and accessible training to newspapers across the country and Canada. All upcoming and 178 archived webinars can be found at onlinemediacampus.com. Before I introduce our presenter for this afternoon, I do want to let you know we encourage questions at any time throughout the presentation. Please use the Q&A icon or the chat box to submit your questions at any time, and we will work them in the program as we are able. Also, we will have an archive of this presentation available for you to view on the Online Media Campus website, and you'll receive an email on how to access it once it's ready. I would now like to introduce our presenter, Matt Larson. Matt is the president and CEO of Our Hometown and has proudly served the newspaper industry for 12 years. His company provides a WordPress-based platform that has been customized for newspapers to help them monetize their content online. Their mission is to help community newspapers develop digital business models with tools for better storytelling, a more efficient local news production. Larson leads a monthly virtual conference series where he interviews newspaper publishers from all over the country on how they are utilizing digital to connect with socially distant readers. He is also the publisher of the Our Hometown News, a weekly blog and video and podcast series, which discusses tech tips, marketing strategy, and industry news and events. Thank you, Matt, for being with us this afternoon. I will hand it over to you when you are ready.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Erica. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and make sure I get the right one with the slides. Okay, and we've got to optimize for sound because we're going to be listening to some clips. So let's go ahead and actually launch this thing. So thank you again so much, Erica, for that introduction. And I just want to thank the Online Media Campus and America's Newspapers and all the associations that are on with us today. You're all doing just amazing work for the industry. I'm really inspired by what you guys do, especially with the webinars. So we do these a lot for our customers, but we're happy to do this today for Online Media Campus. This is a new topic, actually. The concept of reviving a newspaper in a digital news desert is an exciting idea. You know, this is a growing problem, obviously, news deserts. You know, just even if a paper exists in these areas, you could still have a digital news desert if the digital presence is lacking. And that's actually one case that I want to specifically talk about, a case study that we recently published on a paper in Indiana that had no website at all, but they did have a strong Facebook presence. And we're going to talk about how we converted that into an audience that they actually owned on their own website rather than, you know, basically just having that audience on Facebook. But, you know, kind of like the Dr. Strangelove title, I kind of like the idea of having two titles on this one. So it's Reviving Newspapers in Digital News Deserts, or How to Maximize Traffic to Your Website. Because everything that we're going to talk about today is applicable on any website, doesn't matter how old it is. Certainly, these are all checkboxes that you need to make sure you've taken care of if you're launching your website. But these are maybe things that you've missed in the past, you know, and your website could be 10 years old. If you don't have the right schema markup for the search engines to understand the structure of the website or what it is, you could be, you know, at a serious disadvantage. So we'll talk about step by step the 4 steps to maximizing website traffic. I'm going to go into these in much more detail in a minute, but just as an overview, the first thing we're going to look at is helping Google index your site, specifically with a Google My Business profile. Then we will talk about submitting your site to the major news services like Google News, how to direct traffic from social media to your website. What are the best practices for that? And that's where we'll discuss the case study. And then finally, keeping readers engaged with the website longer is going to help with, you know, your overall ranking long term. So I just want to make sure I got the chat box pulled up here before we get really started. If everyone could just drop a message in the chat box, just say hello, your name and where you're from, just so we can all kind of get to know each other here. I would really appreciate that feedback. And we're going to be having a lot of feedback throughout this in the form of polls. So we'll get to that in a minute. Erica gave you a quick background on my company, but just for a little bit more context, we work with newspapers exclusively on a WordPress-based platform that's been customized just for news publishers. So it's got all the plugins that you need. They all work together right out of the box. And we also publish native apps that are integrated with the websites. We're a family business founded in upstate New York in 1997. And our number one, the whole company is really revolved around customer support. And that's most clearly reflected in our PDF to HTML conversion service, where we will take a print PDF that our publishers send us and convert it to HTML each week so that they don't have to update the website by copy and paste. And so we're really, in the weeds with actually publishing week to week with these publishers. And then also the platform itself is a constantly evolving thing. So everything that we're going to talk about today is really stuff that we've learned just by being in the trenches and learning from experience on what worked, tweaking things, just to optimize SEO. So this should be a pretty good digest of everything and that we have. Oh, welcome Gunnison Times. All right, New England Newspaper Press Association. Welcome Tara. Great, a lot of people I know, but also a lot of new faces. Welcome everyone. Thank you. Okay, so poll number 1. If we could cue this up, we got it going already. Look at this. Erica is on the ball. So she's already got the poll running. How many of you have a Google My Business profile set up for your newspaper? If you don't know what Google My Business is, then the answer is no. But this is a first step kind of thing with getting on Google. So let's see what folks have. Okay, and our total attendance is 14, so I want to give everyone a good chance to respond here. If everyone could put in an answer, we're at 50%. I would really love to see what the spread is here. Because this is something, I'll be honest, until we really started investing in this, this was years ago, but really started hiring consultants to understand search engine optimization better than we could on our own. I didn't realize the importance of this step. So looks like we've got most of our answers in. We'll continue to let the poll run, but the majority has said no. You do not have a Google My Business account set up, but 3 out of the 9 that answered do. So we're looking at 30-40%. Okay, so we'll get to the Google My Business account in a second, but these are the steps that you need to take to help Google index your site. The most basic things you can do. Really, the first step is setting up a Gmail account because everything's going to revolve around the Gmail. You can just have it be your newspaper name at gmail.com. Many people probably already have this set up just to have a free email account. So you can probably skip that step, but just take your newspaper Gmail account and use it to submit your website to Google Search Console. This is the first step. I don't have a poll question on this because I think if you've made it to Google My Business, you probably have set up the Search Console. But this is basically a way for you to learn more about how readers are discovering your site through Google. We always encourage our publishers to look at their own stats, to look at what are the most popular categories and stories on the website. But this tells you how people are actually searching and when they actually make it through to your website from Google, where did they come from and what were they looking for? At this step, you're also going to submit a sitemap to Google through the Search Console, which can expedite how quickly your sites are indexed. Many of your sites probably are indexed by Google. It's just a matter of optimizing it and getting better traffic from them at this point. But if you are launching your first website, again, this is a step that you need to take. Many of your vendors have probably already done this if you work with a vendor like Our Hometown. That's a pretty basic one. But the Google My Business profile is not something that everyone's aware of. So we've wound up at 40% having set it up, 60% having not. This is a type of thing that Google will create on their own because they're trying. You can think of it as like the primary node for your business on the internet. This is how Google is going to reference you and connect all the dots for your newspaper on the internet. So it's really an important starting point. Again, they'll create these on their own, just kind of as they put the pieces together and see your name mentioned many different places. But once you claim it or if you create it yourself, that allows you to control the content on it and keep it up to date. And Google does definitely appreciate that when you put in your current hours, current address, photographs and things like that. But this is really a key starting point for getting Google to index you and get a good, high ranking, get on that first page of results. The second thing is more technical. So that's okay. That's the end of that poll. So we can leave it going. We got more polls coming up later. This is going to be something that I would recommend you pass on to your, either your website vendor or the developer that's helping you with your website. This is beyond my level of understanding. I'm not an engineer myself, so my engineers basically put this together for me, and this is something definitely you want to let them do, because you could mess it up if you don't know what you're doing. This idea of a schema markup, this has to do with metadata, also known as microdata sometimes, that search engines use to better understand your content. What is the website all about? What kind of website is this? In more of like a qualitative way. And then they use that information, to better serve their search results. These are some of the following markups that should be part of any news publisher's website. So you should write these 3 things down and send them to, again, whoever's managing your website, and just make sure, do we have these 3 markups on our site? First thing is news media organization. This is just a way to give your website more credibility. Google will use it to rank sites in their search results and prioritize things based on the credibility of the website. So I'll show you an example of what this looks like in the markup in just a second. But then there's also a markup called collection page. And this is basically a tag that you're putting on pages that contain collections of articles. So this could be like an archive page or the home page where you're showing many different titles in one place. Then there's also the news article markup, which is for a single story, a single article. Okay, so if we look at, we should be able to, on schema.org, this example. Oh wait, no, I wanted to look at this example from a single article. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second here. I've been signed out, which is not good. Give me 1 second here, and just been totally logged out of my workspace account. So sorry about this. Let me get logged back in. No idea what happened there. Okay. Thank God for LastPass, because I have some insanely cryptic password for Google. I have no idea what it is. Okay, back to the demo. Thank you for your patience. So I want to show you the single article schema markup validator. So this is a link from one of the websites that we do for a paper down in Alabama. It's going to bring in the source code and do an analysis and basically detect the different types of schema markups that are included. And as you can see, we've got the news article and the news media organization. So this has been properly tagged as a news media organization, and so Google can see that metadata and use it for their ranking. Okay, so you could test yourself by going to schema.org and looking at this validator and see what kind of markup you have on the site. I'll drop this link in here in the chat. Okay, I think that's all that we've got for helping Google index your site part 2, the more technical edition. Now let's get to our second poll. Erica, thank you. Let's cue that one up. So poll number 2, how many of you have submitted your site to these aggregation services? Google News, Apple News, or Facebook News? So we're on to the second second step for maximizing traffic to your site. Once you've got yourself all set up on Google and have done everything you can to index a site, how do you kick it up a notch and scale? Google News, very common, probably the most popular aggregation service. Okay, we get the results coming in now. Facebook News, you should be able to do multi-choice. Hopefully you can. So it looks like our 2 responders have only done Google or Apple News. I'd be interested in the reason for that. Facebook news, you are going to need a Facebook page. We're going to talk about setting that up and optimizing it. Things you can do even before you get to the Facebook news step. But so I'm going to let that roll for a few minutes before we announce the results. But so far we have nothing in Apple News and a split between Google and Facebook News. So here are the sites that I would recommend and the order that I would suggest prioritizing these things. Because, we say you want to be everywhere, but, there's only so much time in the day. And sometimes these things can give you, there's a whole approval process. So what do you want to prioritize? I would definitely say Google News #1. They're the biggest driver of traffic for our customer sites, even before they come in. Before we update them. Before we submit them to Google News. And then we've got Facebook News, and then Apple News. And I'm sorry, I've got another technical issue here. I'm going to need to pause it for 1 second. If you guys could just submit your answers, I will be back in just 2 seconds. Really sorry. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Yeah, please put your questions in. I don't think we lost anyone. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, so we're at about 50-50 still. So Apple News, I put that last, honestly, because I don't know. In our stats, I don't think it's really even a blip on the radar yet, honestly. Google and Facebook News are the leaders by far. Okay, so now let's go on to the third poll. How many days per week do you post at least one link on Facebook? Okay, so now we're going to dig a little bit more into your current usage of Facebook. I'm assuming most of you have a Facebook page set up at this point. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but it's pretty straightforward for optimizing that. Facebook will walk you through all the steps, and they'll keep reminding you until you put all in the information that they need to optimize that. So that's pretty easy to get yourself to that baseline starting point. But then how do you grow your audience and actually grow your page at that point? So let's look at our results. Multiple times every day is the leader. Holy cow, with 50%. We must have some big papers on with us today, some dailies, I'm thinking, because that's very unusual for a weekly paper. And just for some context, most of the papers we work with are weeklies. We do have a handful of dailies, but I'm used to seeing papers that are doing once a week. So let's see. That's the minority here by far. That's really outstanding. So not a lot of people doing the 6 to 7 range, but multiple times per day is popular. Okay, so now let's get a little bit more data again from our audience. How many followers do you have on your Facebook page? I wish I could connect it, these polls, so I could know. I'm assuming the people that post every day are going to be in the higher range. But yeah, so what we see most commonly with weeklies is in the 2,000 to 5,000 followers. So that's pretty popular here. Looks like with half of our audience in that group. But then again, we've got some nice, healthy publications both on their websites and on Facebook here with 20,000 plus followers. So that's an amazing resource. I hadn't seen many papers with 20,000 until we started working with this paper in Indiana that I'm going to tell you about. That, again, we converted that audience into an audience that they could actually control almost overnight. So I'm interested to hear. Maybe we can go back and forth on how you guys are using your social media, but I don't really have a poll question for that right now. Let's get to this, though. The third tactic for maximizing website traffic is directing that traffic from social media, mostly Facebook, to your website. And ideally, it's daily. I've really been studying a lot of articles on this topic lately, and they all seem to agree that no matter what your print frequency, you need to be daily online. and that means publishing articles on the website or social media or both. You could do them kind of in connection. That would probably make the most sense. But yeah, the only point here is that you want to be getting content out there frequently, because these algorithms just reward that. So set up your Facebook page, a separate page for each publication if you have multiple, and a separate Twitter profile for each. So those are the two biggest drivers of traffic in terms of social media. You've actually, I believe the order is Twitter, YouTube, and then Facebook, just in terms of how people get local news on social media. So, YouTube doesn't really translate for text content. So, just focusing on Twitter and Facebook. I'm curious how many people are automating this step, though. We have a lot of people on here that are clearly putting a ton of resources into publishing articles every day on Facebook. Do you have your reporters copying and pasting links to Facebook? Or are you using some type of an automation tool? Because these are things that are available that can really save time, because it is pretty much, rote, just like a mundane task, copying and pasting for most people. I have come across some publishers that really like to customize the way the post is written. Maybe they work in an advertisement for a subscription into the post, so they don't want to just pull a teaser from the article. Looks like we have some people using Hootsuite, Zapier, and so Tara uses Hootsuite but doesn't pre-schedule. So you're just using it to blast it out to multiple networks at once, basically, to save yourself the time, right? Make it easier. Makes sense. So then, yeah, Buffer is the same thing as Hootsuite. I should have the Hootsuite logo on here too. Those are scheduling services are all going to just introduce opportunity to save time. You can even schedule directly within Facebook, so you can do the work more in bulk. But ideally, you would have some type of scheduler that's integrated with the website, and that's something our hometown customers on the call today, or anyone interested in moving to our WordPress platform, we can automate this completely with our plugin social media auto post. So you can still have that level of control if you want to push articles out, one article at a time to multiple networks. But you could also completely set it and forget it, which I love, because it really plays into our whole model and our philosophy, which is that we want to automate every step that we possibly can. So for many of our customers, we automate the PDF to HTML conversion. This is just taking it to the next step. It's just syndicating it out there on social media. But the key is that it's automated. Okay, so we got some more feedback here. Facebook's Creator Studio, but you're a tiny staff, essentially 2 people doing the work of about 10. We have to this is the problem. This is exactly why I'm pointing these things out. We have to constantly communicate to make sure we're not stepping on one another, right? So a centralized scheduling tool would help with that. But yeah, it sounds like Facebook's Creator Studio would kind of do most of that. But yeah, the automation isn't there. So you still need to set it up. Okay, sounds good. That's great feedback. I appreciate that. How does the automation handle so with our tool, you can set up templates basically for the posts. So you could have it just write, it's some very simple code. You have a variable that basically says, put the teaser here, and then you can type in, some hashtag, or you could put your newspaper handle in there. So then that would automatically insert to every post if there were certain hashtags you wanted in every post. If you didn't want it in everything, you just wanted to customize that one post with a hashtag or a mention, then you could just do it in one place, kind of like you are now, and then blast it out. Yeah, definitely. A lot of, this is just, unfortunately, this whole great new thing of social media has just created work for a lot of newspapers. And it's just something that you got to do sustainably. It's not rocket science, but just to, remember to do these things on top of everything else is where it gets tricky. So again, social media auto posts, I pretty much covered this already, but this is going to plug into all your major social networks. Okay, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are where most of your audience is right there. But we've also got LinkedIn and Reddit. I don't know of many newspapers doing Reddit, setting up subreddits or anything. I think could be interesting. You could get some really wild interactions there, but you could also get a whole new audience. So I'd be interested in feedback on that. But this, like I said, it's a natural extension of our automation tools. Okay, now here's our case study. The social media auto post combined with the metered paywall and with an ad network. We have our own ad network that we can put on our sites, but any ad network would work, in combination with these other features to monetize your Facebook audience. That's the goal. Very difficult thing to do. I have come across some other companies that are doing this in a really interesting way. One is called Friends to Follow. They have, I think, they're the only other company that I've ever seen figure out a way to monetize the Facebook audience. And I'm not going to get into what their feature is, but it is a smart way to do it. This is another way, just by simply driving traffic to your website by posting links to articles and photo galleries. Specifically, photo galleries, I want to point that out because Facebook is a great app. I'm not going to deny that. It's a fantastic user interface. It's so good that people fall into the trap of just posting content directly there. And so that's not something that you want to do. You want to always drive the traffic back to the website, put the majority of the content on the website, maybe give a few photos as a teaser. But as we'll see in this case study, this publisher was posting hundreds of photos in one post. So they were giving away all this great content. And that's how they built up the fantastic Facebook audience, but we had to convert it. Okay. Excuse me, let me just grab a drink. Okay, so then converting, there's two ways that we can monetize this audience. We can convert them to subscribers with a metered paywall, or we can monetize every visit with an ad network. And of course, you're not going to make nearly as much with those visits as you would with a subscriber. But the idea is there's going to be some people in your audience that are just never going to subscribe. So the metered paywall lets them through, allows us to serve those ad network ads and get something out of it. So Tara, let's see. Let me address the comments here. What if we don't want to auto post every single article? Okay, that's a great point. So what we've got, the tool does allow you to segment by category. So what I would suggest the easiest way to do, and I'm always thinking about what's the easiest way to do it. There's a lot of ways that you could do that, to get to the point where you've got that granular control of what goes up. But then, obviously, if you go all the way in that direction, you're just manually posting everything. So I think setting the category level, then you could just assign the stories that you didn't want to post to that one specific category, and it would exclude those. So in other words, with WordPress, you can have a single story in multiple categories. Let's say one category was set to pull everything and put it on Facebook, but the other category had an exclusion rule set on it. That would override the other category. So you would just simply create this category that you probably wouldn't display on the website anywhere. It would just be called, not on Facebook. And then you could put stories in that. And that would just take care of it before you publish it. Tara, a social media expert from the New England Newspaper Association, has her number one social tip is everything must link back to your site, or why bother posting it? Thank you. Perfectly said. Copy that. Thanks, says Michaela. So yeah, that's exactly my point here. Why are we doing it? We're not, in it to build a Facebook audience just to build a Facebook audience. The idea is to get traffic to the website to monetize them either as a subscriber or through ads. So the News and Review, this paper in Indiana, when they came to me, they had a 20,000 follower audience on Facebook. Really active photographer at this paper, takes tons of great sports photos. I mean, they look fantastic. And like I said, they were uploading every photo that they took to Facebook as these huge galleries that people would probably spend honestly hours looking through these pictures and liking every picture in the gallery. So that was really good for their Facebook audience, no doubt about it. And I'm sure Facebook really rewarded them and showed their content a lot. But they had no website, so they really didn't own that audience. If they wanted to walk away, they had nothing. I mean, they could. Facebook makes it very difficult for you to even get the names of your followers, let alone emails or something to, um, actually follow up with them with. So Tara asked, were they selling the photos through their website? No, they weren't, because they didn't even have a website at the time, but that's what they're doing now. So they still post a good number of photos, and I'm trying to convince them to put more in the photo galleries and just protect them. But they still post a lot on Facebook, but not nearly as much as they used to. And so then they can put them on the website with a watermark or whatever, so they can actually monetize it. Okay, then again, they launched the website with an average weekly traffic of under 100 page views. I mean, and that was a good week because they were promoting it in the print edition. They would post a link here and there to the website on Facebook, just saying, hey, here's our new website. But, that was one out of every probably 20 posts had a link. We flipped that on its head, so now it's literally every post on the website, except for a handful. Some newspapers still like to, share other organizations' posts as their own posts, and we still see that here, and that's fine. But just understand, what you're doing. What is the goal here? Is it to, get more people looking at other pages on Facebook, or is it to get people to your website? So anyway, we enabled the auto post, began sending every article that we were publishing through our extraction process on the website, and now they're averaging 5,000 page views a week from Facebook, with the biggest spike being on Thursday when the paper's extracted. So this is something that we're still tweaking a little bit, and we're studying the optimal time to publish things on Facebook. You can read all kinds of studies on that, but it's pretty clear that you want to stretch it out as much as you can over the course of the week without publishing old news. So what we're doing is using categories to segment it, and basically pushing all the news and sports kind of articles out first, and then the more evergreen content comes out over the course of the week, so that you get that constant flood of traffic, rather than just like these enormous spikes on Thursday, which are good. We want Facebook to see us as a daily publication. Okay, we got some questions here, so let's Tara says, when I was an ad director, we used to sell our news photos through a portal where people could buy merchandise with them. Right. So they could buy, physical products, e-commerce page, definitely. Great idea. How much do people typically sell their digital photos for? That's a great question that I do not have the answer for. Let's put that out to the group here as a little poll. If anyone is selling digital photos, do you sell them in packages, per photo? I'd be really interested in that. I do know that we've got e-commerce functionality on WordPress, but a lot of people are using third parties like SmugMug to do these things. So that would be one vendor I've heard being used, but I'm not sure on pricing. Okay, so now we're about 35 minutes in, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit. Now we've got people on the website at this point. So I want to just talk about some of the tools and techniques I've seen publishers using for keeping readers engaged, because all that is going to feed back to Google. They can measure that when people bounce after a few seconds or after viewing less than one article. They can track a lot of that. So that's going to feed back on to their recommendations. So we want to keep people on the site, on articles as long as possible, and looking at as many, making their visit as long as possible. And so related articles, podcasts, contests, and newsletters. These are the top really exciting areas that seem to be the leaders in terms of driving engagement with the site. So we're on to poll number 5. I want to see, should be another multi-select poll. Which of the following engagement strategies have you implemented for your website? Any kind of recommended content. This is like at the end of a story, it recommends another story to read. Podcasts, audio content. This, in my experience, really drives time on site. doesn't drive the page views as much because they're listening to one story at a time, but definitely drives average time on site. Uh, Contests and then newsletters. I'm not going to dig into those in too much depth today, but contests seem to really be this thing that it's on every top 10 list of tools for engagement. Okay, so we're getting some feedback here. That was a single selection poll. Okay, well, hopefully people chose their favorite of the four. We have no one saying newsletters, but I'm sure some of you are using newsletters. But of the split, it looks like the leader is contests. So I'd be interested. Do you guys use like Second Street, any third-party tools for that? I know Second Street's a great vendor for it, and they kind of have everything prepackaged. So a lot of our customers use them. Okay, interesting, Jeff. Thank you. And Hannah. Yeah, they're huge. I've heard about them for years. After contests, though, we do have some people producing podcasts and audio, and the recommended content is last. So, okay, that's really helpful. So let's just talk a little bit about what we're doing with related articles and why we think this is important. And it might be worth looking into, with your current website, because WordPress right out of the box has a recommendation engine that's good, but we've improved it. So again, once we have directed traffic to the website, the objective is to keep them engaged. So some of the really sophisticated related or recommended stories tools will use natural language processing. That's what we're using. That's compared to WordPress out of the box, which is just going to show you other stories from the same category. And it's going to be chronological, so it's going to be the most recent stories from the same category as the article that you're reading. So that's helpful. It's kind of like opening up the newspaper page and looking at, a story, and then you see others that are kind of recommended right there. But when you're using more sophisticated recommendation tools like that look at the actual proper names mentioned in the article and tries to connect them, based on what's most likely to be, of interest to the reader. So we're using some of these tools, and we use the same technology to create playlists of our audio content, because the same idea applies here. Really the whole industry, the whole digital media space is going in this direction of the endless playlist. You look at the Facebook news feed, it's literally endless, right? The YouTube recommendations, they're going to keep playing videos for you based on what you've watched. So I think we want to orient ourselves and learn from what these big tech companies have really done well, and we can do it on the local newspaper level. Okay, automated podcasting. So audio articles is how we're doing this. The folks that are producing podcasts and other audio content, I'd be curious, is this something that you're recording manually, like a traditional podcast, or do you have some type of an automated tool to create audio? Because as we saw earlier, there's certain limitations on certainly staff and resources, and even just skill set. Like, this is a whole new thing that you would have to learn to get into podcasts. How to use GarageBand or some other recording device and editing software. So we try to automate it, and again, it's like the extension of that PDF to HTML conversion process. We're sending it out on the web as HTML, we're sending it out to social media, and then we're also turning the text to audio. So every single article on the website will be turned into an audible story. Someone asked about not doing every article on social media. You can also do that for this. You don't need to have every story turned into audio. We could do it just on the category level. And we can automatically feed these episodes to all the major podcast apps. So that's another source of traffic that we haven't even addressed here. Other applications like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We could be getting our brand out there and driving traffic back to the website, because every one of these episodes is going to have a link back to the original URL. So I'm going to take a quick break here and still resolve that issue from earlier, hopefully, and play a quick video from a recent interview we did with editor and publisher on our podcast audio articles tool.
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me? All right, so Matt, let's get back to you for a second.
Whoops, hold on. Sorry.
All right, so Matt, let's get back to you for a second. Now that we've talked about this thing, let's show what a physical audio article is. Can we do that? Turn on your mic, Matt. I turned down the music. I did mine, so there you go.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Let me share my screen. Got the audio shared. Okay, so you should be able to see the Signals website, This Day in History. Y'all see that?
Yep.
Okay, this is a kind of a cool story. I love the Beatles. Let's listen to this one. So what we have, just to give you a tour, is we've got the headline, and then right under that, we've got a little ad here. We'll talk more about that in a second. You'll hear the ad read at the beginning of the story. Then we've got the audio player, and then we've got the story. So you can listen and kind of look at the pictures and read the story at the same time. Let's give this.
Hold on, before you play it.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Sure.
This is a story that that guy's team created normally and just popped it into the CMS. And this is all dynamic and it happens. So you didn't write the story. You're just the background that creates. Okay, go ahead then.
Exactly. Yep. This is just a WordPress website that they're publishing on. So here we go.
Audible stories made possible by the Prescott Hearing Center. Get your free hearing test today. It was just 57 years ago today, February 9th, 1964, when the Ed Sullivan Show hosted four men that were about to become a world sensation. Ed Sullivan, America's King of Saturday Night, booked the new sensation for four shows, each with a massive viewership above 70 million. Though this was the Beatles' first American television appearance, their album I Want to Hold Your Hand had already made the #1 spot on the Billboard charts, and thus, with their meeting with Ed Sullivan.
Okay, pause it now.
Audible stories
that is not a paid guy from Fiverr, right? Professional voice. That is a computerized. It's sounding a lot better than my phone system voice, the one that we pay $39 a month. So we've gotten to a point now where there's inflection.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are all able to hear that okay. That's just kind of my normal demo of this feature in a nice video format, so I thought I'd share that. But yeah, the quality of this stuff is improving all the time. There's a lot of machine learning going on in the background, so it sounds very realistic. It's cool. It also uses the natural language processing actually to understand context. Certain words are spelled the same way, pronounced differently, and it hits it almost every time. As Michaela, I think, can attest to, who's using it at the Gunnison Times. So now let's get into some ways that you can integrate these tools with your current website. Because I understand not everyone's in a good place to switch to Our Hometown to just get audio. So you can actually get this from any third-party CMS. We can do this through an RSS feed, creates an embeddable playlist that goes on the website. We did it for the Sedalia Democrat, just to show you what this looks like. And again, this is going to just be a driver of engagement. So the player is going to pop up because it's embedded. It's a little bit of a delay there, but yeah, here we go. This is the playlist. So you can listen to the whole newspaper front to back as a playlist just through this interface. So if anyone's interested, we can do a free 30-day trial of this on your platform. You wouldn't have to change your CMS. We just need an RSS feed, and we would feed it into our system and send it back to you as a playlist. Now, I know we do have at least a few Our Hometown customers on the platform or on the call right now. We've got, for you, we can do these players, this playlist generator, which I'm really excited about. This was really designed with Spotify in mind. If we look at the mobile interface, there's all these different collections of they're basically different playlists of articles, again, all driven by the related stories technology. So when I click on this one recent article, it's going to give me a playlist of other stories. Oh, look at that, look at how connected that is. These are all related to the Walter's Gardens podcast, but they're not all necessarily in that category. They're just things about gardening and trees, different plants that you can survive indoors. So again, that's looking at the content and going way back in the archives in some cases to find the most related story to what you just selected. Okay, now let's get back to the presentation. So, I mean, we're basically wrapping it up here. We're coming up on, we got about 10 minutes left. Usually like to wrap this up in definitely less than an hour. So drop any questions that you have in the chat box now. We will have a video available for this later. We can send it out to anyone that's even registered for the conference. But yeah, those 4 bullet points, I really encourage you all to take those to whoever's in charge of your website and just see if there's anything that you've missed in that setup process. While we're waiting for any last minute questions, I just want to give a quick plug. At our hometown, one of the big things that we're focused on is helping our publishers invest in their staff through training on Adobe products. So we've got this great partnership with Kevin Slimp. We sponsor all of his sessions, and he does them monthly for our hometown customers to attend completely free. Any number of your staff members, no limit on the number of seats. You can attend any one of these sessions, so please contact us. If anyone isn't a customer, though, he does let me invite a few publishers that are at least considering switching to our hometown. So shoot me your email in the chat, and I'll sign you up for the next one on December 3rd, which is on InDesign. And then last thing, okay, thank you very much, Kim. I will put you on the list. And Anne, all right, great. Now, another thing that I want you guys to know about, excuse me. Got to clear that. All right. Rapid prototyping. This is a way for you to just get a sense of what our hometown's about really quickly. We basically will do prototypes for anyone. There's really not much cost for us to do this, but we're setting up a fully functional website, and it will have your content on it. We've got this great rapid prototyping tool that allows us to spin up a new WordPress website. Then we use our PDF to HTML extraction process to populate it with your content. So basically, in less than a week, you can have a fully functional, responsive mobile website that's ready to go live. And there's no obligation to do this. If you just want to check out the platform and learn a little bit more about it, this is a great way to do it. We'll set you up. Again, no cost, no contract required for this. Okay, and so I think to just wrap it up here, what I usually like to do is just show a quick testimonial video. As you can see, we're definitely out of the content of the webinar at this point, and I just want you guys to have all the background on our hometown and hear from some of our customers. I said it in the beginning, our number one priority has always been customer support, and it really comes through in the testimonials. Occasionally, we'll be on a Zoom call when a publisher says something really nice. I mean, it actually happens a lot, and so here's a couple clips from some recent interviews with publishers on our hometown's platform.
We love our hometown. We love working with you guys. We've been longtime partners, and you guys are always there right with us. So.
I really appreciate you taking the time and making yourself available.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so dazzled by the work. Yeah, I mean, I think it takes. I've been thinking a lot about all of the different elements of what goes into a successful launch. And
right.
I'm sure you've heard the term agile workstream methodology. I was trained, I took a course in agile methodology, which is instead of iterating, for months and getting
right.
something out, sort of doing it in an iterative process.
Right.
Which is what we were able to do with your team. Like they built something, then I reacted, then they moved the content over, and then I reacted.
Right.
And it was very efficient that way because we were really organized and I was organized. So I don't think, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I think I also was a step ahead, a little bit. I knew exactly how I wanted it to be done.
Right.
And, but I think the point is I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know if you guys could deliver it. I sensed that you could, but everyone was as nice as you were, Matt. Like I knew you were so nice on that first call, but you've got a team that's really nice and really capable.
I know.
Those two things.
I'm really lucky. Yeah.
Capable, nice without capable is really great. It's not really great.
Yeah.
And not capable, but really nice is also not really a good combination.
Right.
You have both. you know,
exactly.
and everybody felt that same urgency and eagerness to get it launched as I did. I felt like they were at least as invested in it as me.
What made you choose Our Hometown 3 years ago when we first met? What made you decide to switch from the other vendor?
Frankly, one of the things, I've worked with the other vendor for many years, but how responsive you guys have been, or you guys at least gave us the idea that you would be responsive, and it turned out that it's the case. So
Great.
the support, I probably ran you through a few more hoops than you would have liked as far as design the site, and that's why I keep talking about we got to bring it back in. You know, I asked my staff, what would you like it to look like? And somebody said, oh, NPR is nice, and you know, I'm pleased with the work setting it up. You know,
Great.
Any bumps along the road were fixed, you know, so.
Let's talk about that for a second, like the prototyping process. How did that go? You know, you sent us the link, you said it wanted to look like NPR, and then we just kind of made changes and there was just a bunch of back and forth, or how did that go from your perspective?
A lot of back and forth and a lot of things, I don't know if they were screenshots or things that I in a PDF or somewhere or other that got into the system. And I remember talking to you about, you know, what the most popular design was. And at the time it was that conglomeration, as I call it, you know, old-fashioned 150-year-old newspaper, but, you know, up at the top, a bunch of images so that you click on to get to things. And I said, you know, no, you know,
no, thank you.
We're not going to do that, you know, and that was no problem. I mean, I didn't have to fit into a cookie cutter kind of thing. So that, you know, that was one of the things. Price was right. The things we discussed early on, some of them we've implemented, some of them we haven't. You know, you're usually a little ahead of, you know, things I ask for, and then we got to catch up with staff and remembering to use them.
Are there any other features that come to mind? I really appreciate what you said in your email and what you just said about how we're ahead of the game and we're trying to drive things forward, and you guys feel like you're catching up with us, not that, you know, you're pushing us to do things. So are there any other examples of that you can think of?
Well, I think, you know, you're doing the audio now, but I think I mentioned today you have to be able to start, stop, throw away, start over again quickly and inexpensively, you know. And
I think that we do uniquely serve the weekly paper because we're kind of taking on that responsibility of the R&D.
That's key for smaller organizations, even larger, smaller organizations. I mean, we're, you know, we have six papers, you know, but put them all together and you've got, you know, 16,000 print circulation, you know, so it's we're not a big organization, even though we have titles, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it's essential that we have a partner in terms of, you know, willing to try things.
Was there any one thing about the company, Our Hometown, that made you know, feel comfortable making that switch that you had, you guys had kind of admittedly procrastinated for a while just because you didn't want to have the problems, but like, you know, was it because we only work with newspapers or because we're on WordPress? Was there anything about us that you liked, especially?
The CMS, the WordPress system was great. The fact that you were strictly with newspapers is like a huge relief that, you know, you're specializing in what we do. It's not, you know, you're actually tailoring to car dealers and people like this, and we're just part of it. The other great thing was that you're locally owned. You guys had a prototype to us in less than 2 days. And then we were up and running in, you know, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, awesome. And that, you know, the training and support and everything's been great.
Sweet.
Every time I've had a question, Terry especially, like, amazing. We just get instant response. Here's like great directions and step-by-step that kind of walk through and how to fix it and what to do. And it's been great.
Amazing, dude. Thank you so much. Every one of those points you hit on, I really am so proud of the fact that we can do these things quickly. It's our focus. So you've just reinforced the value of that as a customer. So I appreciate that.
We love our hometown. We love working with
All right, thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone who had joined us this afternoon. And if you guys do have any questions, feel free to submit those in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll get those answered. And while we wait for those, I do have a couple of reminders. At the close of this, you'll receive a short survey, and if you could fill that out, it is very helpful for us in planning future programs. And you'll receive an email this afternoon with instructions on how to access this webinar recording. Well, Matt, I do not see any questions. So thank you again, and thank you everyone for attending, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.